Well, to discuss this further, I'm joined now from New Delhi by Jagdeep Chokar. He is one of the founders of the Association for Democratic Reforms, a non-governmental organization that looks at electoral and political reform. In Bengaluru, we have Gopal Krishna Agarwal. He is a national and economic spokesman for the ruling BJP. And completing our panel is Gali Venkatesh Rao. He is an advocate in the Supreme Court of India. Let me begin by getting a perspective from each of you here, and I'll begin in New Delhi with Jagdeep. How could this amendment to approve foreign funding of political parties be a good thing for India's democracy?
Well, it is not a good thing for Indian democracy, and it cannot be a good thing for Indian democracy, for the simple reason that the law which is being attempted to be amended was actually removed from the statute books in 2010. So the law was technically what is called repealed, and therefore it is a dead law which has been dead for 8 years. Now, first of all, to reactivate and then to amend a dead law is against all canons of justice or even normality.
Okay, then why was it done, Jagdeep?
It was done because the two leading political parties, the BJP and the Congress, have been found guilty by the Delhi High Court of violating the Foreign Contributions Regulation Act. And in order to avoid that guilt or prosecution as a result of the Delhi High Court judgment, which was given in 2014, the first attempt was to amend the newer version of this law, which was promulgated in 2010. And when this was discovered that these donations which were under question were taken before 2010, now the 1976 law, which is no longer valid, is attempted to be amended.
Okay. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, your party stands to benefit from this amendment. Your party fought for this amendment, and yet the opposition, as you just heard, or the NGOs interested in this will say that this is a cynical ploy to avoid the penalties that you should face for having broken campaign funding law in the first place.
No, actually, because we are not getting what is the right actual amendment. The amendment only says that in the change scenario, the amendment does not allow foreign funding for the political parties. It only clarifies that those companies which are registered in India, having business in India and having income from Indian sources, political parties can have their funding from that company. It's merely an amendment and it's a clarification. It does not allow foreign funding of the political parties. There is no change like this. Now the foreign political parties can take funds from the foreign companies. It does not allow this. It only clarifies that those companies registered in India and having operations in India, having income from Indian businesses, from that companies, now in the change scenario when there are so many FDIs, this company, etc., from those companies, political parties can take this donations or funding.
Okay.
That's only the clarification.
So with that, though, do you not fear that corporate interests will become too powerful in influencing politicians in India through this amendment?
No, already there is a large part of corporate funding in the elections. Elections are very expensive, and if there is a transparency which is being brought by the Election Commission and the political parties, income tax rules, etc., they are bringing complete transparencies in how political parties are funded, from which source they get their resources. They have to file their complete with all details and disclose everything with the Election Commission and Income Tax Department. So therefore, with transparency, ultimately they will have to get funds if if they are getting the expenses from the transparent way.
Is that why it's good for Indian democracy then, by helping parties campaign?
No, but there is a confusion. The parliament has not allowed any foreign companies to fund Indian political parties. It's only the Indian companies they can fund political parties. That's the only clarification. Only they have defined that equity component. If in Indian company they have some component from the foreign investors or foreign equity holdings, even then the political parties can take the funding from those corporate houses, but they have to transparently disclose everything. So it's not allowing foreign funding of a political process, as
Okay.
some quarter are making it out to be.
Okay, Gali Venkatesh Rao, let me ask you, is this amendment just and is it in the interest of a transparent democracy?
No, I don't think so, because if you are going to have the foreign funding in political activities, irrespective of their whether
No,
they
this
have
is not
business in
foreign
India.
funding.
It's funding from foreign
Yeah.
companies with subsidiaries in India. So they are still foreign companies, but they do work in India.
Yes.
Venkatesh, go ahead.
Yeah, they are still foreign companies, and therefore it's not worthwhile to. It is a very dangerous precedent and a risky precedent, because any corporate entity may come and set up its business in India, and in order to influence the any political party, may.
Unfortunately, it seems we've lost briefly the connection there. Jagdeep, I want to ask you, as it was stressed by Gopal Krishna Agarwal, these funding will be fully transparent. But we've heard critics say that that is exactly the problem. These donors can be anonymous and their donations are not at all transparent. What is the truth here?
There are two issues here. One is that BJP and Congress violated the law in 2009 and before that. Now, what is being touted as a clarification is amendment in a law which was enforced from 1976 to 2010. That law is being amended to get the two major political parties off the hook, where they have been found guilty of violating that law by the Delhi High Court. That is issue number one. Issue number two is the transparency in political funding. As a matter of fact, in the latest budget or the finance bill, about a year ago, a new instrument was introduced called the electoral bond, which makes political funding completely opaque. Whatever little transparency was there earlier, that is also going to go away, and nobody will know who has given how much money to which political party.
Go ahead, Gopal.
What ADR gentleman, Mr. Jaideep, is saying, he is saying that with this amendment, government has allowed foreign companies to fund political parties in India. I am very categorically saying that this is not the case. This FCRA and the Election Commission or Income Tax Act has not been amended that the foreign political parties can take funds from foreign companies. That stands as it is. But one minor amendment has been done which says that those companies which are registered in India, having business operations in India, and having from the income in India, generating income from India, those are not considered as foreign companies. And that's a very important change that is required in the current scenario, because we have so many multinational companies. The equity of those companies are not very clear who is owning which equity, which country it belongs to. So we have defined that companies which are doing business in India, they can only donate from their income generated in India. So then how you call it a foreign funding, I can't understand.
Okay.
The second thing is that the issue after that, it is more important that we make transparency. So this is nothing to do with the transparency. That is a separate aspect dealt by the Election Commission or the Parliament through the budget amendment, that you have to disclose. Through electoral bond is a different thing. That is implementable on the domestic companies also. That is applicable for the companies which have 100% equity holding in India.
Okay.
And ultimately, the management and control of these companies is in India. Only the equity they can
Okay.
have by foreign
You know what?
companies.
We only have a
So
few minutes left
this
on the
is in
panel, so
change
I need to
scenario, in
give
the
our
change environment,
panelists
this
fair
is must.
time as well. Gali Venkatesh Rao, I see we do have you back. Let me ask you about this. We're hearing a lot of explanation of some of the what obviously the BJP thinks are misunderstood kind of technicalities in this law here. But we've been told that Greenpeace, along with thousands of other NGOs in India, lost their licenses to receive international funding in India because India's government feels they have reason to doubt foreign entities who fund NGOs. Does this represent a double standard in India, that political parties can receive international contributions but NGOs cannot?
Yes, absolutely. What can be a security risk for an NGO will also be a security risk for a political party. Obviously, when you can't have two yardsticks to measure what kind of foreign contribution an organization or an entity can get in India. It's more so a dangerous experiment to allow foreign companies to fund political parties, because there is a stake of a foreign company. Therefore, should it be allowed to deal or connect with the Indian political process? Should it be allowed to influence the elections in India? It's a dangerous precedent and a risk for the security of the country. I will give you an example of what happened in the United States, for instance. The Russian interference is a big issue, and if it is proved, then I think the government there will face a lot of flack. So therefore, I think it is not correct to have any foreign companies contribute. Just a moment, but there should be a regulation. There are no amendment to rules of the Election Commission or the Representation of People's Act. There is no audit by which you can make out who is contributing this. How can you amend a law without amending the other laws regarding the elections?
Okay, Gali Venkatesh Rao, very quickly, as an advocate of the Supreme Court, can this amendment be stopped, or is this the new reality for India?
Yes, it can be. It can be challenged in court. And if it is challenged in court, I'm sure the courts will look at the risk that it poses.
Okay, Gali Venkatesh Rao, I will have to give you the last word because very unfortunately we're out of time.